So good evening. We are here today to talk about how to master any JEE topic. Now that itself is a topic which requires a lot of discussion, and you have to be with me. Now, I assume that you have started preparing for JEE with this thing in your mind that you have to do smart, consistent work. All right. Many people just get into this by thinking that they'll have to do a lot of hard work, and they start doing a lot of hard work, but they don't have any direction because they don't plan things. And when you don't plan things, you can't maintain a consistent pace. All right. So those things we'll be discussing. So I'll come to the topic of how would you master any topic. Okay. So this is what I did, and this is what I've seen in most of my friends who are from IITs and the discussions which we have had with them, is that see, when the topic is being taught in the class, all right, be 100% there, be completely absorbed in that thing, and without that you would not be able to master any topic. At that time you should not have any fear, all right. You should not be scared, oh, I'll not be able to understand this, or I don't know what he's saying. Shouldn't think like that. At that moment, have complete absorption. And if there's something which is obstructing your absorption in that topic, say you don't understand that particular thing, stand up, okay, and ask. Be totally shameless, okay. You have to become completely shameless, because in that moment you might feel ashamed, but you know that after an hour or maybe after a day or 2 days, everybody would have forgotten about it, but you would have learned something. Almost every person whom I have seen from IIT, I find some element of shamelessness, which people call shamelessness, is basically a thing that they ask the questions when they have them, all right. Then one thing which I followed was that I was very diligent, you know, I can say that, in making notes. So what I used to do is, I used to make notes very carefully. Now, making notes very carefully, there's one style which we learn in school, right, where you write everything very beautifully and you underline with pen and all that thing, because one of the goals there was to impress the teacher, but there is no one here to check your notes, all right. So making notes diligently means that whatever is being said there, you write it in such a way that, think in your mind that 200 days from now or 100 days from now, if I look at this notes, all these things should come up to me. Sometimes even when the teacher tells a joke, I would write down that joke also, like in some circle or something, so that I remember, oh yeah, he made that joke about that topic. Now everything comes back to me. That it's just a memory which is there, and that memory has to get clicked, all right. So make good notes. Then see, this is another of the tricks which I've been using, and I see some of my friends using who are from IITs, is that make a separate notebook for each chapter, okay. Don't make like one thick notebook in which you're writing all the notes and solving all the problems. Don't do that. That's very dull, okay. That's not smart work. Make a separate notebook for each chapter, okay. So why is that? Because see, you have a lot of chapters and you have to do a lot of practice in almost each chapter, okay. So make a separate beautiful notebook, write down all your notes in that, and whatever question you are practicing, also practice all those questions in that particular notebook. And why will this be beneficial? First thing is, everything will be in one place. So tomorrow if I want to go and like practice wave optics, I have to like revise wave optics, I just have that notebook. Everything I have done is in that notebook. I also do this thing that whenever I'm solving a problem, if I went wrong somewhere, I don't scribble it out. I just make a circle with a red pen or something, and I just write the solution, the correct solution next to it, so that next time I see it, I remember, oh, I made this mistake, man, last time. Okay, then I solve it again, maybe like 2-3 months or 2-3 weeks later, and then I make that mistake again. Then I realize, oh, I've been making this mistake consistently because I keep seeing that I make this mistake. Then it gets registered in your brain, right, that you are prone to make mistakes of this kind. For example, me particularly, I was very bad in calculation. I would get the concept, but in the calculation somewhere I would always, you know, do some, you know, some mistake. So what I have found really helpful is that knowing the pattern of your mistakes, right? Eventually you realize, oh, this is the question, I'm going to go do here I have to tread very carefully, because you know I make mistakes in calculations, okay. Now that is about good notes. And one very important thing about preparation in for any topic in JEE is you have to understand this fact that the syllabus for JEE, I'm not trying to scare you, I'm trying to tell you the fact that the syllabus of JEE is vast, and it is very vast relative to a student who has just come from 10th standard, where things were so simple that even like a month and a half before your examination, if you became really serious, you can like score a very good mark, right? But you can't do that in JEE. because in JEE the syllabus is really huge and they're going to ask you conceptual questions, they're not going to ask you definitions. Alright, so you have to understand that. And the second thing which you have to understand is that you have very limited time. The time is very short, okay? So you have to do very smart work. And in that smartness, you have to also understand that you are a human being and you are prone to, and forget the things which you are learning. Today, for a month you have been learning, let's say, ray optics, and you know every question in ray optics, you're like the pro of ray optics, you're solving all the problems. But 1 month down the line, the same problem, you'll take more time. 2 months down the line, it will take more time. Why? Then if it is happening, then the whole month which I spend on ray optics becomes almost useless by the time I come to writing my JEE, because you know what, everything has vanished. Now if I'm taking half an hour to solve a JEE ray optics problem in JEE, doesn't make any sense. For that, you have to understand that revision is the most important part in JEE. Okay. Now I'm going to tell you how to do smart revision. Now with a disclaimer that this might not be relevant to everyone, but to most of the students to whom I have suggested this, this has turned out to be very beneficial. So I would ask you to at least try it for a month or so. If it doesn't work, it doesn't work, or it might work also. So what do? So what I had was, I had this fat diary, okay, I used to call it my fat diary. So I used to have this really fat diary, and what I used to do is every night, actually in the end of the day, half an hour of the day, that last half an hour before I would go to sleep, I would have this JEE time or my motivation time or some lame thing, but I used to have this time in which I would note down in that diary what all things I have learned in that day. Today I think you need not have a diary, you can use an app also for that. Just note down what all things you learned today. So in today in chemical kinetics I learned this thing, or today in physical chemistry I learned this thing, today in electrostatics I learned this thing, today I learned about binomial theorem, this is a really fascinating thing about binomial theorem. So you write down some anecdotes, something you write down, okay, and you keep maintaining this. What will happen? Make this thing that after 2 weeks or after 3 weeks you'd revisit your diary and just flip the pages. Oh, I learned that, I learned that, I learned that. You'll remember so many things you've been learning. So like, oh my god, dude, like that is the topic which I need to revise now. So you had solved some problems then, maybe you had solved some 15 or 20 problems, now you'd solve 5 problems and the thing would just spring up, that will be fresh in your memory. And research shows this, that if you revise things like within a month or like, twice or thrice, after that it becomes very concrete in your mind. So you only have to revise twice or thrice, right? And one very important thing with this is also your daily planning. Okay, so daily planning, when I was in 9th standard, what used to happen is like I used to make like this timetable and I would stick it to the wall and was like, I'm going to follow this timetable every day, like no matter what happens. And what was the result? After 2 or 3 days I was not able to follow it because life is not so hard, okay, life is not so straight, life is like crooked, something might happen, So don't make such kind of hard timetables. Every night in that half an hour period which I had, I would make the timetable for the next day. Next day I would know, oh, I have to go for this dentist appointment, oh, I have to do this, I have to do that. I would take everything into consideration and I would try to suck out the maximum juice from the next day, alright. So make a small diary also and make every day like, what you are going to learn and what you are going to revise and everything. And JEE is basically not about just learning concept. That is, I think, the 20-30% part of JEE. And I would say that out of the 15-17 lakh people who write this exam, many people get that. Many people understand the concepts. But JEE is not about just concepts. JEE, as you know, is about applying those concepts. So for applying those concepts, you need to have a lot of practice. When I was preparing, because I can tell you just my story, okay, to be like very honestly. When I was preparing, my teacher was like, this is the question bank. It had like some 1,000 questions in every topic or something. It's like you have to solve all the questions. So what I did was like I started like we were doing some chapter and I was like started solving all the problems. It went on. I was not able to complete that. And I somehow completed that and I moved on to the next chapter. But then I noticed that after a month I anyway forget it. What's the point of spending so much time? Then it clicked to me that instead of doing those 1,000 questions right now, what I would do is I would spread those 1,000 questions in the whole span of 2 years or whatever time I have left, so that, okay, I'm going to do 10 questions today. Next month I'll do 15 questions. Next month I'll do say 30 questions. Like that I will finish those 1,000 questions, but over the whole year. So that idea remains always fresh in your mind. Okay, this is how it was. Okay, this is how it was. There's this very good, very famous psychologist called Daniel Kahneman, who recently won, not I think recently, but he won a Nobel Prize in economics. He had this idea of system 1 and system 2, and this is my hypothesis on this. This is no scientific paper on this, but according to him, say for example, someone asks you what is 2 plus 2, immediately your mind goes like 4. What is 2 into 2? 4. 2 into 3? 6. Why is that? Why immediately? But if I ask you a question, okay, if a car is moving with this much velocity, this is the acceleration, if it turns like this and this is the force acting in that direction, what will be the answer? You can't just tell it like that. Then you'll be like, yeah, I can solve it, but like give me 2-3 minutes, I'll be able to solve it. But you were not able to tell it just like that. Why is that? That is because you have that knowledge, but your knowledge, as Kahneman says, is not in your system 1, it is in your system 2. And it takes some time to penetrate. You have to go there and search, okay, yeah, this was the concept, this is how to apply it. But 2 plus 2 is equal to 4 is in your system when it automatically someone wakes you up at night and asks you, what is 2 plus 2? It's like 4, let me sleep, okay. So what we are trying to do through this practice is, for example, you learn a topic, say you learn Doppler effect, okay. You learn Doppler effect, you understand Doppler effect so clearly. But every time you're practicing questions, those formulas are coming back and back to your mind. Okay, this is how it was. Oh, the velocity to the source is in the denominator of the observer is in the numerator. Okay, when they come closer, it increases. When they go far, it decreases. Okay, you're developing an intuition. Okay, this is called rational intuition. That information, you knew Doppler effect. You can totally explain Doppler effect. But now with practicing more questions, that idea is slowly penetrating into your system 1, you know. Now you can see a question, you won't be scared, you won't be surprised, and that is the whole point. When you write the paper of JEE, you should not be surprised by seeing any question. It's like, yeah, I've done this kind of question. Oh, I've done this kind of question. I've done this kind of question. That should be the thing which should come to your mind, okay? Along with that, so these were the things about preparing any topic really well in JEE. I would end this segment by telling you a very quick story about Picasso. Picasso once went to a market, and there was this lady who recognized Picasso, and she said, Mr. Picasso, you know, I've heard so much about you, you're such a wonderful painter and all that. Can you please do like a small sketch for me, please? And she started like, she just pulled out a piece of paper and Mr. Picasso, can you please draw this for me? She's like, yeah. And he like drew some beautiful thing and he gave it to that lady. And the lady was, Mr. Picasso, that's fantastic. And the lady started walking away. Picasso said, my dear lady, that would be $1 million. She said, Mr. Picasso, $1 million, that took you like 30 seconds to do that. And Picasso says, my dear lady, it took me 30 years to do that in 30 seconds. Okay, that is the point which I am trying to make. That practice in JEE is very important. All right. Now, along with this, you have to understand that it is very important to understand that you have to maintain a balance of yourself. Okay, with you're going to get so much cognitive load that you have to balance it out by equal amount of play, and so schedule some entertainment things like once or twice in a day, like once in 2 or 3 days. Go out, have fun, watch a movie in 2-3 days. It's fine. All right. Your brain needs entertainment. It's like a bow and an arrow. Okay. Sometimes you have to pull back the string, so that the arrow goes faster. Your body needs relaxation. There is a very beautiful idea of diffused mode and focused mode of thinking. I would recommend you to Google that, focused mode and diffused mode of thinking. Even Thomas Edison used to use that. And I have recently discovered this thing called meditation. It is a fabulous, wonderful, very underrated thing. Okay, so if you're a student, I would very strongly recommend you to meditate for like 5 minutes before you go into any classroom, and meditate for 10 minutes before you are entering any examination. And meditation techniques are very simple. They're available in YouTube and everything. Please go through it. And one last point which I want to make here is, any topic, say they are teaching you any topic. For example, they are teaching you projectile motion. Learn it at that moment, completely absorbed in it. And your aim should be, I have to go and I have to like capture the core of that concept. Okay. Once you capture the core of that concept, for example, in case of projectile motion, that core is nothing but understanding that it is nothing but one-dimensional motion applied in 2 different directions. You applied in X direction, you applied in Y direction, you get the equation. That's simple. If you have not understood that core, everything else will look very confusing and complex. What is happening? What is happening? Maybe you'll understand a certain part of it, but you'll not understand the whole thing. So you always attack at the core. But to attack at the core of a complexity, you have to go through the complexity, okay? You have to be with it. So those were the certain things. Please understand the importance of revision, and please understand the importance of smart work and planning. Please, in whatever phase of your JEE preparation you are, please make a note of all the questions, all the chapters which you have to learn, and how many topics those chapters have, and how much time you have. Please make a note of this, stick it somewhere in your room, and remind yourself how less time you have for your JEE preparation, and be consistent and be focused. Alright, so that is what I wanted to tell you briefly about preparing any topic in JEE. So now I think we'll take some questions on this. Shubham is asking a question. Sir, the syllabus portion of JEE has been completed. How can I revise it now? What should be the strategy? See, revising is, you have to understand the weightage, the two things. What is the weightage of each topic, and what is your proficiency in each topic? If there's a topic which has a good weightage and you're also good in it, for example, mechanics, good weightage and you're also good in it, revise it first, okay? Make sure that you know everything in it, but don't spend too much time because you have other topics also, right? So first thing is you have to divide this, like what is the weightage of that topic in JEE, which you can get anyway in our website also, you can get that, and how good you think that you are in that topic, and the ones which rank higher, prepare those first, okay? Revise those first, and slowly you move like that. Like for example, electrostatics also has good weightage, but your preparation is not so good, but you can do that now. In the end, if you get like half a day to study a topic like telecommunication and all, it's fine, because you might hit like one question in JEE mains once in a while, or for example, like logic gates, you have to revise logic gates, you can do that in like last 1 or 2 days, all right? So that is what it is, but it has to be very planned, and every hour of your day has to be planned. That I'm going to study electrostatics for 3 days, in which the first day I'm going to study this subtopic. So you have to be very clear about every chapter and how many subtopics each chapter has, and which all subtopics you're comfortable with, okay? So that kind of planning is very important, Shubham. Okay, so next question is from Vindu. Vindu is asking, does BYJU'S offer a test series, and also, sir, do you write poetry? Yes, BYJU'S does offer a test series, and yes, I do write poetry, but I think you'd enjoy my poetries after you have crossed your college or something. Kshitij Jain says, do I study circuits? Of course you have to study circuits. Circuits is actually not a very difficult thing. Circuits is see, the thing is, again, the core of it. For example, you have understood how to apply a KVL, right? Very beautifully and very consistently. You have solved many questions in that. After that, you'd see a question of circuits and you want to solve it, okay? Because it's that simple. Sitich, okay. Sai, how do I study circuits? Okay, I'm sorry, I misread your question. You're saying, how do I study circuits? Okay. How do I study circuits? So okay, I'll tell you briefly how to study circuits. It's like whenever I get a circuit, this is my style. Whenever I get a circuit, I have just 5 things, okay. First of all, I check whether it's a series or parallel combination. Okay, if it is not obviously a series or parallel combination, I eliminate that. There's no series and parallel combination. Then I check for if it is a Wheatstone bridge. If it happens to have like resistance in such a way that it is a balanced Wheatstone bridge, so I can take out the resistance in between, and then it converts into series and parallel combination. If it is also not a Wheatstone bridge, 2 things you have checked, this in this order: parallel, series, Wheatstone bridge. If it is also not a Wheatstone bridge, then what should you do is, then you should check for if there is any symmetry in this problem, okay. So there are some problems of symmetry, okay. So if you're not able to apply the first 2, then you check whether it has point symmetry and path symmetry. If you go through our videos, we have very beautifully described with proper animations, you know, the point symmetry and path symmetry by rotating the circuit and everything, showing you the symmetry in a very beautiful way. So then you check for that. And if all the 3 are not fitting, okay, and of course if the circuit is not a simple circuit, right, so in the end you apply KVL. If none of these is possible, then you apply a KVL for a complex circuit, which is a tedious job, because you know you're going to get a lot of equations. You have to sit and you have to solve all those equations, which is a pain in the neck. All right. Sai Srujan and Abhirami is asking, how do we approach thermodynamics with respect to chemistry and physics? See, the way to approach anything is that first you have to become empty of things which you already know. Sit down in your lecture or sit down to watch the video and watch everything from the beginning very carefully, consistently. Okay, thermodynamics is nothing special. Thermodynamics is just like any other topic of physics or chemistry. Practice a lot of questions. Thermodynamics is actually not very difficult. I consider it to be like not a very scoring, but not a very difficult topic as well. You have isothermal processes, you have isobaric processes, isochoric processes. Understand each processes in depth. Okay, understand the Carnot engine. If you go through our videos, we have like explained everything in very detail, you know, and very interestingly, we have created stories also so that you remember those concepts. So that's how you have to learn. Thermodynamics is nothing special as such, but it's just that you have to be consistent, and you might face a little bit problem in chapters of heat transfer where emissivity and all that comes. So again, I don't have enough time to explain all that, but if you go through our videos, that will be very clear. So I have one more question from Rahul Vasisht. How can I remember the derivations in topics of physics? And Hemant is also asking how to remember reactions in chemistry. Okay, how to remember derivation is by doing it a number of times. Okay, so I do a derivation, like once I see the derivation, then I try to do the derivation on my own, and wherever I get, see, in fact, even before, I would suggest to you, even before you go and see how a derivation is being done, try to derive it on your own. Try to think in all possible directions if you have that much time, if you really want to know that derivation. If you have exhausted all the ways you can think about it, only then when you see the derivation, you'd be able to appreciate, oh my god, oh, this is also a way, and then it will stick in your mind. All right. The usual thing which people do is like they mug up the derivation in the end, okay, which is not a good thing, because if you know the concepts, you don't have to do that. It's just you have to derive it 2-3 times. But yeah, in the end, I would really suggest you, strong recommendation, that even when you think that you can do the derivation on your own, just go through the derivation once, because there are many steps involved, and if you get stuck in any one of the steps, then it will be a problem. All right. Hemant's question was, Hemant's question was, how do I remember reactions in chemistry? Okay, reactions in chemistry, I'll tell you how I did. Was I used to make cheat sheets. I would make an A4, not bigger than an A4 sheet, in which I would write down the reaction and the name. And in fact, in chemistry also, everything comes with practice. Okay, just the name reactions. If you forget the names, you're forgetting the names is because you have not practiced it enough. See, the core thing which I told you, that if you get completely absorbed in what is being taught, and if you keep track of how you're revising things, all these problems are like, just like small, fibers of that core problem. That core problem, if you tackle, that core thing, if you understand, you have to keep revising consistently. You have to make cheat sheets. For example, even in chapter of electrostatics, or in the chapter of center of mass, there are so many formulae. Write down those formulae, keep it stuck somewhere, and solve a lot of problems. Make a separate notebook for each chapter. All these problems would immediately vanish. You cannot pinpoint at a specific problem and try to solve it. Okay, you have to maintain a healthy learning process. So that was from us of how to prepare any topic in JEE. I know that I was really fast because we wanted to keep this session short, and I hope I was able to, maybe not completely, but to some extent was able to solve the queries which you had. So thank you for spending time with us, and all the best with your preparations. And please understand that you have to be consistent, be smart, consistent, hard worker. All right. Thank you.